Well, good evening. I'm Clay Hardy. I am chairman of the Union County Republicans, and I want to welcome everybody to the event this evening. I'm glad you guys took time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight for this great event and get to hear from our candidates this evening. So just a quick run over of the format tonight and how things are going to flow. First off, we're going to have Annette Hickey's going to come up here in just a few minutes and just have a few remarks from us. We did have some candidates that were going to be here, but had some things come up along the way. And so they weren't able to be here tonight, but Miss Annette's going to come up and talk to us just for a moment. And then we'll start with the actual contested races. Now, we do have some prepared questions that are going to be asked of each of the candidates. We'll also allow you guys to submit questions that you'd like to be asked also. The way we're going to do that is we have some note cards and pens that we're going to pass around to you guys. And as we go throughout the evening, whatever questions you think of, you'll please write them down and submit them to us. That way, we can read them from the podium so that everybody hears them really well, and the candidates can all have a good opportunity to address all the issues and all the concerns that you guys might have. So, introduce tonight's moderator is Park Smith. Parks is a social studies teacher at New Albany Middle School, lifelong New Albanian in Union County, and we're very pleased that he agreed to do this for us tonight. So, let's welcome Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Clay. I was honored to be asked to do this. I'm not sure what my qualifications are exactly, but I am very happy. I was telling Ashley Kidd that I don't have to listen to Ole Miss baseball tonight. Pretty excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I guess I'll ask Ms. Annette Hickey for remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for holding your applause. I was reminded when Mr. Dan Skinner stood up and gave the verse, "This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." Well, one thing, that's one of my favorite verses, but also I was thinking the last day of the qualifying day, I woke up thinking that because I think of that verse often, and boy was I rejoicing that at 5 o'clock when I found out I was unopposed. I was still thankful and still rejoicing. Just a few things that I wanted to share was that back in 2007, I felt led to run. Actually, in January of 2006, I felt led or the call to run for Chancery Clerk. I struggled with it for a long time, and in 2007, I made the decision to run. I was running, I was working as a Chancery Court reporter and had done that for several years after my completion of court reporting school at Ole Miss. But once I decided to run, I thought I'm going to run Republican. I had opposition from several people in my family because Union County had historically voted Democrat. And they say the only way you can run and win in Union County is to run as a Democrat. Well, I followed my heart, followed my beliefs, and I ran as Republican. I know Republicans aren't perfect, Democrats aren't perfect, no one is, but my heart was for that. And I stand by that, and I still stand for that today. I was the first one to run, excuse me, I was the first, after running for running on the Republican ticket for Chancery Clerk, I was the first Republican to win in the county for Union. So I'm excited about that. And I'm so excited that we have so many others that have joined in. So if I could be of any assistance with you, I'm at 109 East Main. Come visit me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our sheriff candidates. So I'm going to ask Brandon Garrett and Ashley Kidd to come on up here, sit in the hot seat, get ready for some tough questions. The way I'm going to do this, I have some prepared questions. I'm going to ask each of you those questions. I'll start with Mr. Garrett, the first question, then Mr. Kidd, then we'll rotate, and I'll start with Mr. Kidd and Mr. Garrett. So the first question we have for Mr. Garrett, and for both of you have talked numerous times about the need for more training and professionalism in the UCSO. What deficiencies, if any, do you see as most important in current department operations, and how can they be addressed? Mr. Garrett, I'll start with you.
Yes, I want to say thank you for everyone who's coming out tonight. I know you love the community just as much as I do. I just really appreciate you coming to support all the candidates here tonight. In response to the question, there are many areas that need addressing in the current department. The most critical area is in training. One of the issues that I've seen in the current administration is they're putting newly hired deputies on the road with zero training. They're handing them a gun, a badge, and car keys, and some of these guys have not even been to the academy. Our county deserves better than that. These guys should be well trained from the point when they go to the academy to a field training program after that prepares them to represent the department. I have experience and I know what it takes to get a new deputy ready to serve the public. I will incorporate extensive field training programs where senior deputies mentor the new recruits. I will continue deputies' career paths with specialized training throughout their whole career. Public safety is our chief concern, and I will not jeopardize it with deputies that are not prepared to handle the situations. In reference to the professionalism, I have experience writing and have already written an entire policy for the Union County Sheriff Department. I will enact that policy that is written and hold each deputy accountable to the guidelines in that policy.
Thank you. Ashley, would you like to weigh in on that?
First and foremost, I also would like to thank everybody for coming out. It means a lot to see support from people that want to hear from us. First and foremost, I want to say that when I say professionalism and training, I mean no negativity towards our department. Jimmy runs the department, and he does it his way, and that's fine. As far as with me, I have firsthand experience. I worked at the Sheriff's Department, and when I was hired, to reiterate what Mr. Garrett said, I was given a patrol car, a shotgun, a ticket book, and told to go on patrol. I had the basic law enforcement training program behind me. I was a certified officer, but that was all the training that I had at the time, and I wasn't really given the opportunity to do a whole lot more than that as far as further educational training. Prime example of what I mean by more training is I-22 runs through our county. Okay, that's a prime example of progress in our county, and we don't have a single solitary officer that is TCAP certified and interdiction certified to work that interstate. When I say interdiction certified, you can pull cars over sometimes and get lucky and get drugs and things of that nature, but there's people, there's guns, there's money, and there's human trafficking, there's drug runners that come through here, and they do it every day, and it comes right through Union County. These classes teach deputies and what to look for that's different from the general motoring public. Okay, the criminals are figuring out new ways every day to get away with it. We got to figure out ways to stop them. And that's what I mean by more training. As far as the professionalism goes, I'll say this. I promise you that if I'm elected, every single person that works for me is going to be professional, they're going to be courteous. When it's time to do their job, they're going to do it, but that doesn't mean they can't be professional. Every single officer will have body cameras, from the investigators to the sheriff to every officer that works for me, whether they're part-time or full-time. Not only are they going to act professional, they're going to look professional. Okay, I believe in our job as law enforcement officers. We've got to be physically fit, and we've got to look professional. And they're going to look professional. They're going to pass a quarterly PT test. And when I say PT test, I mean physical training. They're going to have to pass their equivalency of what they had to pass to graduate the academy every 4 months. And in order to do that, they'll be eligible for promotion and things of that nature within the department. If someone doesn't have the effort to keep themselves up to where they can properly protect themselves, as long as you guys, I think that they shouldn't be rewarded for being that way. Also, I know it's expensive to keep yourself up, and gym memberships get expensive. I've already talked to a local business owner here about getting a group membership for the entire department, and if I can't find room in our budget to fund that for our deputies, I'll pay for that out of my pocket myself, because I truly believe that if you can't take pride in yourself, then you can't take pride in anything. Thank you.
Mr. Kidd, if you want to hold on to the mic and just jump into the next question. You've already weighed in on this a little bit, but the next question is, how would you draw on your own professional experiences to address the things that you're talking about addressing?
Well, the thing about it is I try to be nice to everybody I meet. I try to be professional in every situation. There's been many times when I myself, as an officer, have really lost my cool, but I had to be professional because we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. I've learned from every experience that I've had, my supervisors, and with that, I've carried with me throughout my career. And when I say professional, that's what
Mike to Mr. Garrett. Mr. Garrett, just to reiterate, the question was about your professional experience, and how you'll draw on your professional experience to address the issues you're concerned about in the department.
Sure. Over my career, I have had extensive experience with managing law enforcement officers. I have experience supervising and leading teams. I have extensive experience in investigating crime scenes. I have experience in working in a jail with twice the size of Union County. I have experience training and teaching others. I have experience preparing budgets, obtaining quotes from vendors, and also managing fleet vehicles. I have experience also managing employee payrolls. All this experience has been in law enforcement. I will use this experience to ensure the community is being protected at the highest level possible, and also that the department runs efficiently.
All right, this next one, I should have let you keep the mic, Mr. Garrett, but I'll go ahead and ask you. This one has to do with technology. And obviously technology is advancing at a rapid rate. We see that in school every day. And there's lots of security issues in school as well as in the general public. So the question is, what public security issues does technology bring? And what challenges do these technological changes pose to Union County? And how would you address those technological changes and advances?
Well, I also have a lot of experience in public security issues and investigations. That's the majority of my background. I'm certified in mobile phone forensics, and I have extensive knowledge in computer forensics and also information recovery. I've investigated hundreds of identity theft cases, elder abuse cases, credit card fraud cases, check fraud cases. I've taught courses to investigators in cyber crimes and have given numerous presentations to private groups, such as managing social media and also internet safety for parents. I've led multiple task force agencies in conjunction with the Mississippi Attorney General's Office, with the FBI, where we targeted internet crimes against children and online predators. Union County is just as vulnerable as any other county in America. Our department should be prepared to combat any issue with highly trained deputies. I will make sure they're trained to do so.
Hand the mic over to Mr. Kidd. Mr. Kidd, again, the question is about technological issues and technological advancement and what challenges that poses for our county and how you would address them.
So, last week I actually went to a class that dealt with the internet, the dark web, and things of that nature, investigating packages being sent, drugs being sent back and forth, and it's amazing the stuff that's out there. Just recently, I put a Google form on my Facebook page, okay? And my approach to this is not seeing the technology as so much of a hindrance or security issue, but I would like to use it to our advantage. I put that Google form out on my Facebook page, and if you go to it right now, if you want to, it doesn't matter. It's I'm Ashley Kidd on Facebook. Just go down there and click on it, and you'll see it's a survey. It asks for the public's opinion, and it leaves a spot where you can put suggestions, also a place to be contacted, or you can do it anonymously. If elected, I believe that one of the first things we need to do is we need to put us a Facebook page out there. That way our citizens, of course it'll be filtered, but our citizens can tell us things that's going on in the community. Almost like an online tip box. Because nowadays, a lot of people, they don't want to come, they want to tell somebody, but they don't want to come into the sheriff's department. And they don't want to sit there, they just don't want anybody to see them telling anybody else what it boils down to. So you put that out there where people can give you tips, and they can do it anonymously as well. We have the same type of app at the high school. It's called the Stop It app. And what it does is it gives students the opportunity to leave information about people bullying them and just things going on inside the school that normally they wouldn't come to us and tell us, but they'll do it with this app. Those are some things that I would do as far as using the technology to my advantage and it not being a hindrance.
You want to hold on to the mic. The next question is about mass shootings, and of course those seemingly are becoming more and more common, and it's definitely something that people are afraid of. What tools are we not currently using that you feel could help us reduce the likelihood of mass shootings and the like happening in Union County?
So as some of you know, I'm actually a school resource officer here at the high school now, and this is something that's dear to me, and I'm sure everybody else. We train for these types of things all the time. We hope it never happens. But the thing about it is it could very well happen. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. Our sheriff's department has made it a priority to put a school resource officer in every school, and they work jointly with our school system. They have security in place where you come through the door. I would say that, like I said, credit where credit is due. They're doing a good job. One of the only things that I would utilize would be things like this Stop It app. You give it out to the students, and of course, it works its magic. But the only other thing you could do to make it even safer, I think, is put more officers in the schools, in which you guys know as well as I do that that takes money, and sometimes you don't have the money. But as far as that goes, I think they're doing a good job.
Mr. Kidd, real quick, you mentioned mass shootings in schools, and of course that would be the place people would most associate with mass shootings, but is there a fear that could happen elsewhere? And if so, how might you prevent that?
Well, like your festivals and things of that nature, I think that officer presence, just everyone being alert, the whole department, when we have whether it be city or county, I want to have a really well-working relationship with our city. If they're having the Tallahatchie River Fest here, I will volunteer my officers to come in here, and some of them, and of course, they got to be somebody to patrol. But those guys on their days off, I'll volunteer them to help with the city, just along with the city officers, because together, the only way we're going to help stop something like that is if we all work together as a team and not worry about who does what and where it is. So.
All right. Mr. Garrett, would you care to address the mass shooting issue both in our schools and in the wider community?
Yes, I'd love to. Unfortunately, time and time again, the biggest target is the schools. School resource officers are the primary defense against school shootings. In our current sheriff department, I often see these officers away from the school, leaving the school vulnerable and unprotected throughout the day. These officers should be guarding our children the entire time that is in the session. This must be changed. Also, currently, our sheriff department does not require our school resource officers to wear bulletproof vests. In the event of a shooting, this officer is going to be the first one to engage a threat. If they're shot not wearing a vest, they will not stop the attack. This must be changed. In other types of shootings, the city and law enforcement, city and county, and state agencies should all be working together, sharing information of all potential threats. No threat or concern should be ignored, and it should be properly investigated. Agency leaders should meet on a regular basis and discuss strategy and also work together to protect the community in all events across the county. As sheriff, I will lead the way in communicating between these agencies and schools. We will share intelligence together and be proactive in monitoring threats.
Thank you. That concludes our prepared questions. Clay, do you want to field questions now from the audience?
Yeah. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of either of the candidates, please write them down on cards. We'll set those up and we'll read them for a podium. It is. So that everybody has a good chance to hear the questions and hear the answers.
I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to Mr. Kidd to start, and I'll just ask the question from the podium. Okay, this is a question from the audience.
It's my understanding that there are government grants that the Union County Sheriff's Department have not applied for our county's advantage. How would you facilitate these grants?
Okay, so there are a lot of grants out there. Our police department here, they have a seatbelt enforcement grant. They also have a DUI grant. Okay, there's federal grants out there that provides bulletproof vests for the officers at no charge to them. All you got to do is apply for them, keep up your paperwork. I've already talked to someone that will be in place that works for the Sheriff's Department, and that's what she's going to do. Is she's going to research these grants. She's going to write these grants, and we're going to be able to get this money, and we're going to be able to disperse it to our Sheriff's Department to help get the tools and do the things that we need to do to properly protect our county.
Would you care to address the question of grants?
Sure, I agree as well. Grants are money out there that all you have to do is apply for it and grab it and bring it to our county. Other agencies are doing it all across the nation. We should be applying for those and bringing that same money here to us. I completely agree. And that's something that we have to do in a smaller agency. Union County is a smaller compared to a lot of cities, and we need grant money to pay for some of these big projects such as body cameras or vests and different things that we need to pay for. So, and that prevents us having to ask for more money to the supervisors and might even cut out raising taxes.
If you want to hold on to the mic, I'm going to ask you the next question. The question is about educational background. Would you explain your educational background?
Sure. I graduated from W.P. Daniel, if y'all remember that, New Albany High School now. From there, I went to University of Mississippi, and I got my degree in criminal justice, and I minored in English while I was at Ole Miss. So after that, of course, I started working in my law enforcement career. I went to the police academy at Tupelo, and the whole time I was in Tupelo, I furthered my education. I became a certified investigator with the state of Mississippi, which was a whole other 10-week program that I went through. Countless trainings here and there, actually over 2,000 hours of continuing education over my career. That was very important to me because I wanted to be very well-rounded. I didn't want any type of case coming across my desk that I didn't have a direction to take it and to do something about it. That was important to me. Also in my career, I become certified in mobile forensics. So basically what that is getting information out of cell phones and computers. I really got into the forensic world and did a lot of good with that, and it's a big passion of mine. A lot of good evidence on those avenues. Since then, recently I became the first hostage negotiator in Union County, and I currently still hold that title. So.
Well, my background is not quite as extensive as Mr. Garrett here, but I did graduate from W.P. Daniel High School. We were actually the last graduating class before they changed it to New Albany High School. After that I went to Northeast. I majored in marketing management. I was actually in class there with Miss Kay there. She'll probably remember me. But during that time, I started working. I was miserable. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't like my field. I started working at Walmart, D.C. And you may think about, what's that got to do with your education? But I'll tell you what it taught me. It taught me a lot about hard work and work ethic. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but over there, it's sink or swim. And when I started working there, I learned every job in the building. And I always knew I had another purpose. And I just didn't know what it was. It was an itch that I just couldn't scratch. I did a ride along with the police department. And after that, I was hooked. I found my niche in life. I knew what I needed to do. I actually, in September of 2008, I quit the Walmart Distribution Center and I paid my own way to the police academy and graduated in March 2009 from the police academy from Mississippi Delta Community College. It's one of those things that I learned a lot along the way, and that's the extension of my educational background.
All right, Mr. Field, we've got one more question from the audience. It has to do with the Second Amendment.
Okay.
So first of all, what is your stance on the Second Amendment? And the question follows up, if the U.S. government tries to take our guns, what would be your action?
Well, as Sheriff of Union County, or just a person in general, I am pro Second Amendment. I believe everybody has the right to bear arms and defend themselves and their property as they see fit. As Sheriff of Union County, if the federal government comes in here and tries to take your guns, which I don't really foresee that happening, but you know, I am an officer and I have to follow the law. And if somebody higher than me comes in here and gives me an order, as bad as I hate to, I'm going to follow orders. That's just the way it is, and hopefully people will understand my position as an official here, that there's a higher authority than the Sheriff of Union County. And at some point in time, you know, your ego will be tested in this job, whether it's sheriff, an officer, a jailer, or whatever. And sometimes you got to know when to swallow that ego and just follow orders.
Mr. Garrett, would you address that question?
Sure. You know, this is something that would make me absolutely sick to see happen, and I don't think we're going to see this. But I agree with Ashley. If we have an order signed from our governor or our president that says we have to do it, we have to do it. But it's going to take a whole lot of fighting back and forth for us to ever get to that point. I'm pro-guns. I think we should even have community classes, and that's one of my platform ideas, is to bring people who are not familiar with guns into a free class which is provided by the Sheriff's Department to actually go out and get comfortable with guns and the current gun laws. Of course, they change a lot, and they have over the last few years, about the concealed carry and can you have it in your vehicle or in your purse, and all those things need to be addressed. So I'd like to take those and give them out there to the public. But ultimately, we have to do what the governor or the president says.
Mr. Garrett, I'm going to go ahead and ask for closing remarks from both of you. And I suppose in your closing remarks, y'all seem to agree with each other a lot, which I think is good. But I'd like to hear what separates you from each other as candidates.
Since this is closing remarks, I want to say thank you again for everybody coming out tonight. I see so many familiar faces, and I appreciate your support. I grew up here, and I've always been connected to the community. My family has deep connections to the community. We own businesses here, the Field House, later Screen Co. That's where I first learned the meaning of hard work and giving back to the community. I'm currently a member of Inglemoor Baptist Church, and I've been there most of my life. I have really been blessed with work experiences inside and outside of Union County. I feel that it is the time now to bring that experience here to our Sheriff's Department. I have over 15 years of law enforcement experience. Most I have spent as a detective and a supervisor. I've worked complex crime scenes such as homicides, robberies, sex crimes, crimes against children, property and cyber crimes. As a detective supervisor, I was responsible and led a team of 8 detectives that managed over 200 cases a month. We did a lot of volume. I obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I'm a certified investigator through the state, and I'm currently the hostage negotiator for Union County. With my education experience leading and supervising teams, I am eager to serve my hometown and our families. I plan to equip deputies with new technology and train them in many specialized areas to handle all situations that arise. Like I said earlier, I will enact department policy that ensures the integrity of the entire department, which will bring professionalism. I plan to invite community interaction by creating classes like I touched on. Not only firearms, but self-defense for women and children, and helping parents manage social media and internet safely. I want to make sure our community is informed through news media and also on all things that are important going on in the community. I am confident that I can lead and manage the Sheriff's Department and create a department that is capable of serving our community here. I invite you to learn more about my campaign through my website, ucsheriffbrandongarrett.com. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
In closing, I'd just like to say I've always been kind of straightforward. Most of you know me, some don't. I'm a people person. I love my community, born and raised here also. As a matter of fact, Dr. Creekmore was the first person to see me come into this world. many 36 years ago. Anytime I've ever been given a chance here in my entire life, I have made the most of that chance. I want to be your sheriff. I'm going to lead by example, and I can tell you right now, I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I can promise you, the things that I lack, I will have the team around me to fill those voids. And together, as a team, we will work for you guys and do the best that we can do, and protect and serve all citizens of Union County. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask the supervisor candidates to come forward. We have Mr. Jerry Burt, Mr. Jim Gann, Mr. C.J. Bright, Mr. David Kitchens, and Mr. Junior Courtney. All right, so it appears Mr. Kitchens and Mr. Gann are the two present, so I'm going to ask each of you these questions. So there are 3 prepared questions that I'll start with Mr. Kitchens, and we'll rotate back and forth. So when you get done, just hand the mic to Mr. Gann. All right, the first question we have is about the brain drain in Mississippi. So statistically, about 1/3 of the class 2019 Mississippians will leave our state in search of employment opportunities that they have trained for, but are not able to attain in Mississippi. What can be done at the county level to curb this brain drain and attract young Mississippians to stay in Mississippi, and more specifically, New Albany and Union County?
Oh, the dreaded brain drain. I have, in my family, have lived out that statistic. I have 3 children, all graduated from a 4-year public university here in Mississippi. One graduated as an architect, one graduated as a physical therapist, one graduated as a graphic designer. Now I ask you, who do you think could find a job in New Albany? The physical therapist. And need to take a moment and to give props to our medical community. The size of Union County and its population, our medical community is second to none, and it's a valuable resource for our community. But what do you do with the architect and the graphic designer? Where could they find a job in New Albany? Well, to try to increase the chances of finding jobs like that in New Albany, I think you would need a 2-pronged approach. First is that you would attract advanced manufacturing jobs. And our County Board of Supervisors has worked these past 3 years to develop an industrial park. And right now we have about 200 acres that's situated along Highway 30 that we call Martintown North. And we have divided those acres into 4 different parcels of about 50 acres each. And our goal is to attract advanced manufacturing jobs for that site. And the second approach that we need to take is to educate and train those graduates that don't choose to go to college, prepare them for these high-tech, advanced manufacturing jobs. And I was fortunate enough last year to serve on the local workforce area development leadership team. Now, that's a mouthful. But what we did, there was about 50 of us that was on this panel, and we talked about ways that we could encourage our graduating seniors to enter the workforce with a trainable skill. And we came up with the 3 Rivers Sector Strategy Plan. And a lot of that has to do with getting manufacturers and schools together. We've asked each school in this 23 area consortium to have high school seniors take the Mississippi Works test and a work keys test, and we ask that they score silver or higher. And with that mark of silver or higher, when you go to Mississippi Works and input your qualifications and your credentials, employers are able to see your qualifications, and that puts the schools and the employers together to find these jobs that are needed. So, but still, how does that help an architect, and how does that help a graphic designer? Well, if we're successful in filling those 4 parcels of land with high-tech jobs, that is going to bring in hundreds of new employees. New employees need new homes. New employees will fill the churches, and we might have to build more churches. We might have to build more doctor clinics. Therefore, giving that architect an opportunity to have a job in Mississippi, in New Albany. And also, the graphic designer, there'll be more businesses that support those jobs. Statistics show that for every advanced manufacturing job that is created, there's 4.5 other jobs that are created to support that one job. So you can see the snowball effect and how that would help keep our students in New Albany and Union County.
Mr. Gann, would you care to address that?
I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Hardy and the Union County Republicans for putting on this event and giving us a great opportunity to speak to our constituents. To address the question, I kind of have a different outlook, different approach to this. I think it's really on the parents, the students, and the educators to sit down in career development classes with these students when they're making these tough decisions at ages 17 and 18 years old, deciding what they want to do for the rest of their life, what career path they're going to choose. And I think if they want to stay in Union County, they have to take that into account when they're making this decision, because we're not going to wave a magic wand and have graphic design artist jobs lined up. They're all down the road here on Main Street, and it's just not going to happen. I mean, and if it does, it's going to take years and years and years with, like Mr. Kitchen said, advanced manufacturing, but that's still not helping the graphic design artists. There's certain niches and areas that these students will have to be informed of by these educators, that they must realize that if they go into that field of study, that they're going to have to relocate to do so. And that needs to be found up front, not hindsight's 2020. They need this information in high school before they make this critical decision, and make sure they fully understand that they may have to relocate if they choose this field of study. And that's what I would do with that. I mean, you can also decrease taxes, which will encourage businesses to come to Union County and to set up shop here and offer jobs. But I'm still not sure. See, I think one of the problems is kind of a society problem. It's not just a local problem. But in our culture in America, we demand our children that college is the only way. And I stand before you today, I didn't graduate college, and I appreciate Ashley Kidd's plug on the DC Walmart Distribution Center. I've worked there for 17 years, and that's where I got my work ethic. And I still work there 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. And college is not for everybody, and that's okay. And we need to teach our kids that's okay, and not force them into something and piles of student loan debt that they may not want. And so let's be real with ourselves, be real with our kids, and let them know it's okay not to go to college. Because I'm making a pretty fair living. I mean, I'm a blue collar worker, I make an honest living, and I probably make twice the amount of an educator that with a bachelor's degree that starts out
That's true.
school teaching. So, I mean, it can be done, and it's okay not to go to college. But if you choose to do so, just realize that you may have to relocate.
Thank you. I'm going to let you hold on with the mic, Mr. Gannon. The next question does have to do with taxes. Local infrastructure is always an issue. In past legislative sessions, bills have been presented that would allow local governments more power to adjust local taxes to meet the needs of growing areas like Union County. Do you support such measures, and how best could the additional income be used if enacted?
Okay, well, to begin, the first point, anytime we can take power away from Jackson and restore it back to the local level, I'm for that 100% of the time. Because Jackson oftentimes is disconnected from the needs of Union County. And what better place to decide what to do with revenue than people that's right here, like Mr. Kitchen on the Board of Supervisors and right here in Union County. They know what Union County needs best. And so any time that we can strip Jackson of power and return it back here, I'll always be for that. But I'm not sure I understand the question, because it talks about increased revenue. Just because you get the power from Jackson back to the local level doesn't automatically guarantee extra revenue. For extra revenue, that means tax increases, and I'm not for tax increases. I think the money's there, we just have to prioritize our spending and put it in the most critical areas.
So as a follow-up to that, how would you utilize better the money that we do have?
Just take it line by line. We have to go line by line with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that we're putting the money in our police department. I mean, we've just had a good conversation up here about our local police department. They need funds, bulletproof vests, different things that come up, body cameras, all this stuff. We need to sit down line by line and make sure they're getting what they need. And our local fire departments, our volunteer fire departments, our first responders, the list goes on. It's just a priority issue. Where do your priorities lie when it comes to balancing that budget and choosing where these funds go? And it's really a judgment call. Some things that's near and dear to me may be different for the next individual. So it's just a judgment call, but it'll be education, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders for me. And then everything else will follow in line.
We'll give the mic to Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Kitchens, once again, the question was about bills being presented to allow local governments more power to adjust local taxes. Do you support such measures? And if indeed we did get additional income, how would you use it, or how would you use the revenue we currently have?
Well, I'm likewise somewhat confused about the question, because our local taxes that y'all pay on your homes, your land, your personal property, your car tax, all of that money comes into the local coffers. And if we're talking about that type of money, the supervisors can, at budget time, place X amount of dollars in the road fund and the bridge fund. Now, we do that by putting what we call meals into that budget. And this past year in our budget, a meal was worth about $180,000. So, for example, if we put 10 meals in our road fund, we'd have $1.8 million in that fund. If we put 5 meals in our bridge fund, we'd have $900,000 to spend in that bridge fund. And each year we might change the millage, so we have that discretion. But one thing that I would like to see changed is, say there was a natural disaster, and 2 of our Tallahatchie River bridges were destroyed. And if we had $900,000 in that account, there's no way that $900,000 would pay for those repairs. But if we had the authority to move some of that road fund money to the bridge, that would be very helpful. But right now, by law, once we put it in that account, that's all that we can spend that money for. We can only spend it for roads, or we can only spend it for bridges. But legislation to help us in those times would be greatly appreciated.
And the next question kind of plays into what we're talking about. Do you feel the county is maximizing the use of the dollars that we do spend
If so, and if not, how? So do you think we're maximizing the use of the money we're spending? Explain yes or no, and how so?
Well, the answer is yes and no. And let me explain. We manage the county business. And sometimes when there's an employee that might retire, we look at their job duties and we look at who else might be in that department. And if we're able to, we'll just divide those duties that the retiring person has and divide it up amongst the other employees. Because basically, what you have, if you have a $30,000 employee, their salary, it's costing the county another $15,000 in health insurance, in retirement benefits, and so forth. So a $30,000 employee is costing you about $45,000. So if we can streamline our workforce and not lay anybody off when they retire, we'll certainly do that. Now, other ways that we might not do such a good job in is maybe in our road repair. We've done the same thing for years, and the new trend for road repair, the trendy word is pavement preservation. And basically what that is, that you group your roads into different categories: good, fair, poor, and critical. And the idea of pavement preservation is don't spend all of your money on the poorest roads. Those roads that are in good shape over a period of time are going to start falling down the scale into fair, into poor. But if you spend a little money when they're still good roads, they'll stay good. And then the rest of your funds you can be putting towards your worst roads. And that's something I think that we need to look at, and we have looked into it as a board. We're looking at some different techniques to keep our roads in good shape, crack sealing, the scrub sealing, micro seal. All of those things can work in Union County and help us maximize our dollars.
Mr. Gaines, would you address that question, please?
Sure. How do you get the best bang for the buck? It just goes back to line by line, just like Mr. Kitchen said. It's a priority issue, and you just have to take, what he explained as a critical road, wasting money on a critical road that doesn't make sense unless you're the citizen that lives on the critical road. Then it's dire need to you. So it's all judgment calls when it comes to balancing this budget and prioritizing the spending. I don't know that I'm going to get up here and badmouth the current Board of Supervisors for respect to Mr. Kitchens. He's a sitting member in District 3. I'm sure they're doing the best of their ability with the resources and revenues that they have been given to properly allocate those funds. So I'm going to assume they're doing a good job at that. But at the end of the day, it's just a judgment call. What I see important, and a critical road may be even more important to me, if enough constituents come to me with a problem that lives down that road, than maintaining this road that's in good shape, which to those people would look like a waste of tax money. So it's really just listening to the constituents. That's who we're here to serve. It's all of you. And with your engagement and you coming to the Board of Supervisors and expressing what roads need what issues are most dear to you, then that's how we need to prioritize our spending. Thank you.
All right, I think now we're going to take questions from the field. Do we have any, Mr. Hardy?
And so one of the questions I've received is, what can our supervisors do differently to better support workforce training at Northeast New Albany?
Well, workforce training is very important, and it kind of goes along with what I was speaking about earlier about teaching our children and leaning on our educators in career development that not going to college is okay, because there's a critical shortage in construction jobs. Construction companies can't find bricklayers, electricians, plumbers. Just everyday, good old hard work, blue collar jobs that make a good, honest living. There's a shortage because we're sending all our kids to college and getting these degrees and student loan debt that they can't use here. And that's not benefiting them or us. But to work with those at Northeast, to get back to the question, see what funding they need, see how we can help as the Board of Supervisors, if there's any funds that we could allow to work with them to help them in shaping and forming these classes to the needs specific to Union County, and leaning on the educators for that information, because they know best what classes and what funds they need as we input what the needs of the county are.
Thank you. Would you like to address that question, Mr. Kitchen? Sure.
Well, a critical need right now would be a place for the welding classes to go. The last year, we've had a trailer in Northeast New Albany that taught welding. And we've had several classes graduate from that class. But that trailer was on loan, and it moves from place to place across the state. So now we have people that we want to train or want to learn the welding trade, but we don't have a place to do that training. So if you know of a building that is available, let Northeast Mississippi David Good know, and he'd be happy to hear what you have. But as far as the workforce development, that is a critical piece of economic development for Union County and New Albany. We have to be able to train our students that don't choose to go to a four-year school, that might like some type of technical training, a 2-year degree, in what our manufacturers need. If we can't get the educators and the people that are hiring them on the same page, we're spinning our wheels. And part of our workforce development team was just that, to get educators and to get employers together and say, all right, this is what we need and how can you help us? And I'm proud to say that Union County was the first county in this region that adopted that program, and is now the school systems and the manufacturers are working together.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead in the interest of time and ask for closing remarks from both candidates. Mr. Kitchen, would you like to make some closing remarks?
Well, as supervisor, I have learned that the 3 areas of work that a supervisor does is, first and foremost, we've got to manage the county business, and we've got to run it as a business. And that's what we've tried to do over the last 3 years, is to run our county like it was a business. Case in point, in 2016, we were paying roughly $950 per employee per month for health insurance. In 2017, your Board of Supervisors was able to reduce that cost to less than $750, saving the county $265,000 a year. So those are the kind of things that your Board of Supervisors has been doing as far as managing the county business. And then a second thing that we're responsible for that we need to really take hold of is our infrastructure. Now, I know y'all have heard a lot of talk in the news about infrastructure and bridges being closed and how many bridges in certain counties are closed. Well, your Board of Supervisors this last 3 years has replaced 7 wood structured bridges with new concrete bridges. We are upgrading our infrastructure. We just received $2,200,000 as a grant for 2 substandard bridges that will be replaced. And that grant is no cost to our taxpayers. And another thing that we need to be leaders in is industrial development. The industrial park that I talked about, that is something that we need to continue to develop. We were chasing grant money from TVA, and they asked us to come to Nashville to make a presentation why we deserved a $300,000 grant. And when we got to Nashville to make our presentation, one of our key points was starting at the state line of Alabama on Interstate 22 and heading toward New Albany and going through New Albany all the way to the east side of Olive Branch. Do you know how many industrial parks with 200 acres or more are located within 2 miles of Interstate 22? There's one, and that's in New Albany. And we're excited about Martintown North and what it could bring to New Albany and Union County. We're also developing a pad in Martintown South, where we've just reached an agreement with Hants, Mississippi, that is going to build a spec building for us, a 100,000 foot building that we can market to prospective companies. So the Board of Supervisors has to be a leader in economic development. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening to me. God bless y'all.
Thank you. Mr. Gannon.
In closing remarks, I'd just like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Jim Gannon. I've only lived here about 5 years. I chose to live here, me and my family. I graduated from Etowah Agricultural High School in Fulton, Mississippi. I went on to attend Etowah Community College for 2 years. I got an associate arts degree in general studies. And then I married my wife of 16 years, Emily Davis in Manhattan. We have one daughter, Madison Gann, which is about to be a teenager. She'll be 13 next month. So pray for us on that. And she'll be going into the 8th grade at New Albany Middle School going next year. But just a little about me. I'm not a politician. I just want to be forward about that. I'm just a concerned citizen that wants to stand up in the gap and do their part to better Union County for all of them. 3 things that are important to me is faith, family, and freedom, in that order. Family comes first, faith comes first, family comes second, and freedom and liberty is most important to me. For smaller government, lower taxes, less regulation. Mr. Kitchens has given us some good information, being a sitting board member. I want to thank him for switching over from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Just thank y'all again for coming out and being engaged and listening to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I'm going to ask our legislative candidates to come forward, Mr. Sam Creekmore and Mr. Robbins Rogers. Oh yeah, and I also forgot to mention our other legislative candidates. Our Senate candidates are going to go ahead and get y'all up here as well. Ms. Kathy Chisholm, Mr. Jeff Olson, Mr. Kevin Walters. All right, once again, in the interest of time, I don't know that I'll ask every single person every single question, but I'll just start since you're sitting here with you, Mr. Creekmore, and then anybody who wants to also address that question may raise their hand, take the mic. I'm sure you'll be nice enough to pass it over to them. All right, first question is a basic 8th grade U.S. history question. What is the role of a legislator as you see it?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to keep it this simple. And really, I think the role is simple, and it's a mission statement for me, and it's to put first and foremost the health, safety, and well-being of your constituents first. And then second would be the health, safety, and well-being of your state, the great state of Mississippi. Put all that above yourself. To boil down to it, it's service above self.
All right, thank you. Would any of the other candidates like to address that question? What is the role of a legislator as you see it?
I think Mr. Creekmore hit on it pretty well. I mean, the simple thing is you make the laws, you amend the laws, also listen to the people. We need to remember who put you in office, and we need to remember to represent them. This is the kind of job you don't represent yourself, you're representing the people. So if we don't put them in the forefront, you shouldn't be running for this position to begin with.
I would like to thank Mr. Clay Hardy for putting this together and for having us here tonight. That was a big job, and I appreciate everybody that came out to listen to us. And I apologize for having to read mine, but if I don't read my answers, I'll forget something. So as a legislator, I feel that my primary role would be to represent the views of the people in my district. For every single bill that comes to the floor, I should consider what is the best thing for the people of 3rd District. How would it benefit them, or would it benefit them at all? As I have said in the past, I am running for this office not to benefit me, but to give back some of my time and talent to the people that have grown to love through the years. People have been really good to my husband and I through the years. We have 3 businesses, and they have backed us like 100%. Our businesses have been successful because of the people in the 3rd District and beyond that. So I want to give back time. God says it's better to serve than to be served. You guys have served me over the years. It's my turn to serve you. And I appreciate everything that you have done for me, and I hope that you appreciate everything that I'm willing to do for you.
First thing I want to say is thank you, Union County Executive Republican Committee, for having us here tonight. I also would like to recognize a gentleman here tonight, Judge Wicker, Roger Wicker's dad. Thank you. You raised a fine young man. I'm going to read mine because there's a lot of work in these questions. The legislator should be accessible and transparent representative of the people, not just for a select few in the district. The role should be to protect the taxpayers' interests and to make sure that tax dollars are being dispersed from the state treasury and appropriated responsibly and effectively to address the issues. My issues are education. There it went. All right. Education funding, infrastructure spending, and economic stability. Role should be to promote Mississippi values and all that our great state has to offer, especially here in District 3. As your potential legislator, I would work to secure a strong small business community and a vibrant economy to bring jobs to our area.
Apologize for getting here late. I'm Jeff Olson, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to come up. And I guess the question is, what is the role of a legislator?
Correct.
Okay. Well, obviously, you got to represent the people. As senator, I got to represent Benton, Union, and Pontotoc. What does a legislator do? Well, obviously, you make new laws that benefit your constituents. You can change existing laws. But the biggest thing is you represent. Now, there's one big thing as far as every year the last few years I've gone down there and I've listened, and I've sat into the Senate, I've sat into the House in session. You know, the biggest thing is that you deal with is the budget. You know, we have $6.35 billion basically per year, and that's the pie. And there's a lot of people that want their money every year. And that's the biggest role, as far as, in my opinion, as far as being a senator, is allocating the money every year.
All right, I'm going to let you hold on to the mic, Mr. Olson, and I'm going to ask you, what personal, professional, and practical experiences would you bring to the job of legislator that make you feel you're the best candidate for this office?
From a personal standpoint, besides getting married and having a daughter, two things in my life has really shaped me. When I was a freshman in college, I'll never forget my dad coming into my apartment and saying, "I have cancer." This was the first day at Mississippi State, and for the whole time through Mississippi State, dealing with my dad's cancer, and he eventually passed away 3 years later. But another thing happened to me. When my daughter was 3, it was 1999, 2000, something like that. It was my birthday, and my wife she'd been sick, and I'll never forget. We went to the hospital, to the ER, and I'll never forget leukemia, the exact same thing my dad had. So, from a personal standpoint in life, my boss always told me, God's not promising us a rose garden. Life is tough. I could have been bitter, but I chose to be better. That's my Sunday school teacher, Bob Monroe, told me. But from a professional, there's 3 things. One, for 13 years, I sold Baskin-Robbins franchises. It's one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. But when you're out selling, there's one thing that you do get from time to time, and that's the word no, no, no. But you just get up and you keep selling, you keep selling, you keep selling. So I had a great career developing franchises in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Great time in my life. The other thing is just being a part of a restaurant, Tallahatchie Gourmet. 7 days a week, I'm down there on 119 Main Street working, dealing with the public every day, business, profit, loss, employees every single day, dealing with people. But that's those are the 2 biggest things. And from a practical standpoint, it's just, I was lucky with my parents. Instill common sense. I'm transparent. I'm Jeff. I'm real. I will always, when I represent you, you will always know where I stand.
Go ahead.
I believe the question is, what personal, professional, and practical experiences would you bring to the job as legislator that make you feel you are the best candidate for this office? We ain't got enough time to tell you my history, but I'm gonna try. I grew up on the south side of Pontotoc County on a small farm. At a young age, my parents expected me to help on the farm, and I did so. Looking back, I used to think my dad was just being mean, but what he was teaching me was a work ethic that you couldn't get anywhere else. And I appreciate you. He's here tonight. I thank him and my mother for all they've ever done for me in my life. On that farm, other than the work ethic, we had, the value of hard work come from both sides of my family. I respect the foundation Mississippi farmers represent. My military background, I spent 7 years in the Army National Guard in Pontotoc. I left that because I had an opportunity at 24 years old to go to work for the largest shipping company in the world, UPS. That's United Parcel Service. I started as an automotive technician with them at 24. I worked for them on the floor in Boonville, Mississippi, and I had an opportunity to be relocated and promoted to automotive supervisor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The first 5 years of my career, 2 of them years was spent in school, getting a business education that I could have not gotten anywhere else. I got the best training there were available. While I was at UPS, I continued to prosper in my career because of God's guidance and direction and abilities that He gave me. I got relocated to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I had Chattanooga to Bristol, Virginia as a responsibility. They closed 2 districts, made one, moved me to Nashville, Tennessee as the district automotive manager. From Jackson, Tennessee to Paris, Tennessee to Bristol, Virginia, 21 facilities, 3 airports. My responsibility had grown way above what I ever thought I could accomplish. But I worked hard. I used that work ethic that I got on that farm. And of course my education from them. But anyways, I was responsible for building budgets for all 21 of them facilities and them 3 airports. And when we built the budget, not only was responsible for it, we had to make sure we made that plan. We were held accountable. In 2004, we decided to move home to Mississippi. I was fixing to get relocated to Phoenix, Arizona, and I relocated 5 times, and I drew the line. So we took our automotive skills and our business skills, we come back home, we opened up our own business, and that's been 15 years this past March. When times was tough in 08 and 09, I added on. I expanded the business again in 2013 and again in 2016. So the qualifications and experiences that I've had, that's what qualifies me. I'm a business guy, I'm a good numbers guy. I can look through the stuff, the line item someone was talking about earlier. When you got 21 facilities and 240 line items per facility for 12 months, you'll spend weeks building them budgets. And when you turn them in, they have to be approved through the corporate office. It takes a lot of hard work and good people working with you to create them and hold to them budgets. That's what qualifies them.
What makes me best candidate for this office? As far as a personal experience, I've been married for 46 years to the same man, Bob Chisholm, and I thank him for hanging on to me. We have raised a daughter in church, and her church attendance is consistent to this day. I taught my daughter commitment, and I worked hard doing that. Teaching a child commitment is a tough job. She never missed one single day of attendance in school the entire 12 years that she attended public school. That not only was a commitment for me, that was a commitment for her. So she worked hard at that. In other words, thank you, I appreciate that. She did work really hard. In other words, personally, I don't just talk the talk, I try to walk the walk, and I've tried to teach her to do the same thing. Professionally, I have established 3 very successful businesses: a real estate business for 11 years, an auction business for 29 years, and swimming pool business for 25 years. In these businesses, I have clients, contractors, and employees. I encourage anyone to contact these folks and ask them about me. Sorry. I feel confident that they will quickly tell you that when Kathy Chisholm makes a promise, she keeps it. And I'd like to add something right there. The people that started with us back in 1990, they weren't our employees. They're not employees. They work with us, and we work with them. We have earned trust with them, and we have not had turnover. The ones that started with us are still with us, and that means a lot to me. It tells me that I can go to the Capitol and I can work with others. It just takes effort, and it takes treating others the way you want to be treated. My ability to establish a good working relationship with these people has prepared me to work well with other members of the Senate in Jackson to represent your interests. Due to my business background, I understand the needs of the businesses of our area, and what is needed to attract and retain businesses in Senate District 3. As far as a practical experience is concerned, all I can say is that my husband Bob and I started our marriage with very little back in 1972 and worked hard, really hard, and with good measure of common sense, we have built a good life together. And another thing that I think makes me the candidate to go there, my parents are here tonight, Bill and Virginia Thurman, and I don't want to confuse anybody. Everybody knows that when I say that, they say, well, I thought your dad was Jesse Leaf, and my pop he's wonderful. I could look the world over and not find a better pop anywhere. He is a great mentor to me. He was with the government and the Bureau of Labor Statistics for 28 years, 20 some odd years. And without him, I could not do this. I may not have as much education as others. I do have education, but maybe not as much. But I promise you, if you spend 40 some odd years with my pop that I have spent, you will feel like you have a master's in everything. He has been a great mentor.
Well, I'm much younger than my opponent here, so I'm going to have a whole lot more energy than he has. He'll like me a little bit, y'all are falling asleep. Personal experience. I'm a 6th generation Union Countyan. My mom actually has been the state representative for the last 4 terms, the past 16 years, so I've learned from her and learned how things work. My family has served this community for that many generations as well. My grandfather, Dr. Ellis, helped a lot of people in this area. But one thing I can do, or one thing I can promise is this. I've been on the floor while a session is going on, and I know how it works. I'm familiar with it. That was an advantage I have for one people in my family held a position. So I know that when I get there on day one, I don't have to waste time trying to figure out the routine, trying to figure out, where to go, what to do. I've been there, I know what to do, and I had a good teacher. So I'm gonna hit the ground running day one when I get there, and that's why I'm the best candidate for the job. I'm not gonna waste time.
If you don't mind, Rowan, will you help me out? Mr. Smith, I'm not going to summarize anymore. I'll never get the mic back. Personally, 27 years ago, Warner and I moved back, or I moved back because she came with me and started our family. And through that 27 years, every political cycle, somebody would call or come by and say, Sam, would you consider this? Would you consider that? And yeah, we did. We were humbled to be asked. And, the timing wasn't right. Children, athletics, school, business. This time was different. The timing felt right. I felt the nudge when we got the call. And so personally, I think timing for me is good, and it's good for my family. And over the 27 years, we have served our community in different levels. And I think this is now the next step for me, another level. Professionally, I'm a landscape architect by trade. There aren't many of us in the state of Mississippi, but we look at things a little different. We have a vision for things. When there's a property or a project or a problem, we look at the end result of what it could be, and we look at the steps of how to get there. And that's what I've applied over my 27 years of business with our landscape company, and then soon after we started a construction company, which has been around for 20 years. And oddly enough, it started with me and a Democrat running for Attorney General, Jay Hughes. So obviously I can get along with both sides. But the construction company's still going on. Through those 27 years, I've had partnerships, and I still have partnerships, some with all different types of professions. And then one other business we started professionally, we co-founded the Cotton States League, which in 14 days will open up its 11th season here in New Albany, and it's arguably the biggest tourist attraction in New Albany. So I bring different experiences, which some successes, some failures, but if applied correctly, it turns into wisdom. And like Robin says, I'm so much older, hopefully I can apply that wisdom down in Jackson. But practically, I think what I add is the passion, the hard work, the wisdom of these experiences, and that will help me, hopefully, be a more viable candidate.
Thank you. I'm going to let you hold on to the mic, and I'm going to address this question to only our representative candidates. It involves education. Y'all are both involved in education in different ways. So I'm going to ask our representative candidates this question. In 2018, the legislature fielded a proposal to take the two 20 years old education funding schemes we currently have and change it to one modern and more accurate scheme. Had this plan passed, Union County and New Albany schools would have seen millions of dollars in additional funding. If given the chance to vote for a new scheme, would you do so? Why or why not?
Can I borrow Kathy's notes?
You may.
No, that's okay. Yes, I would vote for a new plan. Not because I think the old plan's bad, it's just that we've only funded the old plan one time. But I think there's so much turmoil and divisiveness with the old plan that we're going to have a new one to unite our legislature and unite Mississippi on education. We all agree, Democrats and Republicans, that there needs to be more money. I admire Robbins and John Shaw Robbins for what they do and for staying in Mississippi. A third of our graduates in education leave, or almost a third, leave the state. Here in New Albany, our schools are some of the healthiest in the state and Union County. Yet we still have to pass a bond to take care of things what many of us think are routine maintenance. Roof leaks, air conditioners, paint. So obviously there is a need for money. And how do we get it? Well, as someone said, the pie is only so big. In the big picture, Mississippi is a poor state. So we either got to make the pie bigger or education's got to get a bigger piece, no matter what the formula is. In our being the Republican platform, on the first line of education, education is a catalyst for economic growth. That is what we believe as Republicans. If that is the case, we can't expand the pie without economic growth or without raising taxes, and we don't want to do that. So how do we get economic growth? We do what's in our platform. We make the pie bigger and put it into education. It's time that we put our priorities first and put education first, and that will grow our economy.
All right, Mr. Rogers, would you care to address that?
State the question for me again, Mr. Smith. I want to hear it all again.
All right, the question is that in 2018, the legislature fielded a proposal to take the two 20-year-old education funding schemes we currently have and change it to one modern and more accurate scheme. Had this plan passed, Union County and New Albany schools would have seen billions of dollars in additional funding. If given the chance to vote for a new scheme, would you do so? Why or why not?
Okay. Would I vote for a new scheme? It's hard to say because without actually seeing the scheme and seeing the plan itself, I mean, any legislator would vote for something without actually seeing it and seeing the plan and looking at the budget and seeing if it's a good idea. That's hard to answer that question. I would say, we obviously need a change. As Mr. Creekmore said, it starts with education. My slogan is education comes first. I'm an educator and I have been for 10 years. My wife has been an educator for 17 years. So that's an expertise of mine. We need changes there, there's no doubt. But to be able to, definitively say that I would vote for that without seeing the actual plan, that's tough to say. I know that we're 50 out of 50 states in education, so something obviously has to change. There's no reason for us to be 50th. We may not be number one, there's no reason to be last. So some change definitely needs to be made, but I don't know. I think there needs to be a change there, but as far as voting for it without seeing it, I don't know if I can actually say that.
Would any of our Senate candidates like to briefly address education, some of the things they have about education, add to what Mr. Rogers and Mr. Creekmore said.
Let me say at the outset that I fully support our public education and their needs. The changes we've seen in the 21st century in terms of technology and computerization have changed the requirements in that area. I do feel that we should have additional funding for this area through the taxes on online sales and the lottery. On the lottery, I didn't have anything to do with that, but both of those things should yield significant revenue, and perhaps this can help our education needs. As far as whether I support a new scheme of education funding, the answer is it depends upon what is in the scheme. I do not feel that we should burden the taxpayers with additional taxes, be it property, sales tax, or whatever. Our citizens are simply taxed enough.
Union County schools have been, had great rating. I looked at that a few weeks ago and I was like, you know, every school in this county was in the above top 50 ranking in the state. So I had taken some opportunity to talk to some of the superintendents in the district about some of the financial issues that we have. I'm one to believe that accountability and priority is important when we start looking at money. We need to start sessions with talking about educating our kids with funding for them. As far as this funding, I can't commit to a scheme without having read it or knowing what they're planning on doing with it. Any legislature is going to want to see what's being presented. I believe that our per capita per student needs to be increased. I believe we need to be spending more money on each child. What bothers me is we'll spend $50,000 a year on a convict to be in prison, but we're going to spend $8,000 on our kids. That's a problem. I mean, it's probably not got nothing to do with this question, but this is the kind of things we need to be looking at prioritizing about. Our teacher salaries need to be brought up to the southeastern average. And we can find that money if we'll work hard enough and we'll cut the things that's not as high priority as they should be. Education needs to come first. If you want to grow the economy, educate the kids. If you want to reduce the amount of time the circuit clerk's spending on dockets, educate. See if that number don't change. See if that cost and that law enforcement don't get driven down. The guys that get out there and serve our country and our local law enforcement, they need to be funded as well. But on this area, I'd have to see the numbers.
For the sake of time, I'm going to be brief, but I don't know if that was House Bill 957 or whatever in 2018. I do know the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, voted it down 27-21, and I think we had a Senator McMahon voted against it, and I think Tollison in Oxford voted for it. But here's what I will tell you right now. We all know education's important. We deal with it every single year. I know Margaret's dealt with it for 16 years. But I will tell you this, before I vote on any education bills, anything, I will always consult the superintendents in Benton, Pontotoc, and Union, the community stakeholders, the teachers, the principals, administration. I will always, because I want to represent Benton, Pontotoc, and Union.
Okay, I'm going to skip to the last question and also ask you to kind of give your closing remarks at this time. Then I think we may have time for one or two questions from the audience. So here's the final question. Most of the laws under which a county operates are decided by the legislature. After hearing the answers and things we've discussed tonight, what local issues do you feel you can effectively address in the legislature?
Well, being an alderman for 3 terms, and we've heard it tonight, infrastructure needs, I mean, that's an annual thing, every year. But being able to be a senator and be in Jackson, it would be a pleasure, because being an alderman and being in the municipal part of it and dealing with supervisors sometimes, we kind of clash a little bit. I was an alderman from 2005 to 2017. But being down there, we know the needs. So from a local level, dealing with supervisors, working with Randy Kelly out of Three Rivers Planning Development, Mike Armour with Appalachian Regional Commission, anything that we can do as far as sewer, water, roads and bridges. I think Dave spoke on it very well a while ago. Those are the needs. And I can tell you, working with the state leadership down in Jackson, local leadership up here, I tell you, it'll be a 365-day job, because personally I want to make this area, not only New Albany, Pontotoc, Ashland, and the counties, I want to represent y'all. And I think at the end of the day, I think we're working for closing. Is that what we need to do, Parks? What I think the biggest thing with me, and I tell you, I love getting to meet Kevin and Catherine, getting to know them, but I think the biggest thing that for me is, my experience in government. And I cherish the time I had as Alderman Ward 1 and dealing with budgets every year, and just a little bit bigger stage to be able to go down to Jackson. I would appreciate it for your consideration for Jeff Olson for Senate District 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, the district is at the crossroad. Let's prosper by addressing local issues, K through 12 funding, infrastructure funding, and economic instability. We've heard a lot of good ideas tonight, but the devil's in the details. I chose to run for the state senate because I think I have more to give to my home and state. Opportunities everywhere in North Mississippi. I want the voters in District 3 to help me be able to bring all that's available to Benton, Union, and Pontotoc counties. My 8 grandchildren are the next generation. They deserve good jobs, a strong, diverse economy. Thank you for your time tonight, and God bless you.
The two with the highest priority are education and infrastructure, specifically our roads, bridges, and highways. I do feel that we have made good progress in both these areas in recent years, but we don't need to stop now. There was a time when there was little to do here. Our parents and grandparents, and mine did, often had to move away to find work. Things are not that way now, thank the Lord. But we need a well-educated workforce to continue to provide an environment in terms of education and infrastructure that will encourage new industry to come here, and for those that are here to stay here and grow here. It is such a shame when our young get an education and then have to move away because they cannot find a job that fits their educational accomplishments. I would like to say thank you for each and every one of you that have come here tonight, and to Benton, Union, and Pontotoc counties. If you find it in your heart to vote for me, I promise you, I will go there, I will work hard, I will do my best. Honesty, integrity is very important to me. Commitment is very important to me. I have great work ethics. Anybody that knows me will tell you that. I've always worked 2 and 3 jobs. My husband has been a really hard worker, so it's in our family. It's not like he's going to slow me down. He'll stand behind me 100%. And before I give my final say-so here, I would like to recognize my 10-year-old granddaughter who has been here to support her mama tonight. I have 4 wonderful grandchildren, and my granddaughter is very, very special to me.
Sort of stole thunder from us. I guess I agree with most everything you guys said, and also there's ways to get money to this area. You just have to know where to look for it and how to ask for it. At the end of every session, if you're not right there with it and know what's going on, there's a possibility that money could go to other districts, other counties. So I know that recently we've gotten $500,000 the past year to resurface the roads here, which went pretty fast because that's expensive. We've gotten $500,000 for the Heritage Museum in the past. We've gotten money to repair the roof in the building we're standing in right now. So you have to know who to ask for it and how to ask for it and work with those people. Because if you're not experienced and know what to do, they're going to give it to somebody else. So that's how I can help in that area. And I've had a good teacher, like I said. So in closing, I just ask for you guys to vote. I mean, what you see is what you get. I don't beat around the bush with you. I'll fight for you. I'll stand up for you. I'll take your calls. I teach 7th and 8th graders every day. So those people down there in Jackson, they're just grown up 7th and 8th graders. They'll argue with you. They'll try to tell you that what they know is right, but in the end, I will make sure that I let them know what I feel is right as well, and we'll try to come to some kind of conclusion together. So I ask for your vote. Vote Robbins Ellis Rogers, August the 6th.
I'm just going to go into the closing. I think here in Union County and New Albany, we're at a special time. A lot of things are in line for us to have some significant growth, and it's in line because we've had great leaders in the past have put us in this position, and many of them are here. But it's time to take it to the next level. And I think one of the things I bring is effectiveness in leadership. And to be a good leader, you have to care. And I care greatly about this place, New Albany and Union County. And with everything lined up, and with my effectiveness, I think we can really, this could be our golden years, and those golden years could continue for a good long while. So I thank you for being here, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. All right, we've got a couple of questions from the audience, and I'm just going to, I guess, ask you like a teacher to raise your hand if you care to address it. You certainly don't have to, but the first question is, for someone to generally describe the new education funding plan that was considered by the legislature. Is anyone willing to do that? Okay. All right. The next question is, and I'm not quite certain what it refers to, when you become a legislator, will you support reducing administrative spending in education? Yes, no, why? So the question is, when you become a legislator, will you support reducing administrative spending in education? It's Ms. Chisholm.
I will support that because I think that we are spending a lot of money out of the classroom on administration. I think that we need to spend more money in the classroom on the children. We have very smart children, and they need to be educated. We need to spend more money on them. They deserve it. Sometimes I guess the old saying is you have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and I feel like that's pretty much what we have this day and time.
I agree. I think that definitely need to reduce that. The number of students has been reduced the last 10 years. The number of teachers has been reduced the last 10 years. However, administrative costs have gone up. Why is that? What are they spending it on? Is it necessary to spend the money on that? I don't know. I'd have to look at the budget and see what exactly they're spending it on. But it just doesn't add up. Maybe costs of things have risen, and that's why the more money gets spent. But it just, from the number of students and the number of teachers decreasing, yet we spend millions and millions more dollars on administrative costs, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would be supportive of that.
You may not like what I'm fixing to say, but I can put 30 teachers to work tomorrow. We pay a state superintendent $300,000. That's the highest paid superintendent in all 50 states. Our average teacher's bringing home $30,000, maybe just a little more. That's 10 right there. That's why we need to look at administrative costs. It's gotten out of control. I learned one thing at UPS. I went through corporate downsizing. There's a reason for that. The people on the front line is one that's effective. The leaders has got to be man enough or woman enough to say, okay, we're top heavy. We got more people on the floor teaching in this occasion. That's how you get it. Look at that. That's how that administrative costs has went up, and our teachers, the amount of teachers we got went down. We got to fix it. And the only way we can do it is stand up and fight for K through 12 teachers and make sure they're funded properly.
Two entities, hospitals. Who's the most important person? Nurses. School system. Nothing against administrators. Who's the most important people? Teachers.
Mr. Creekmore, did you want to address that question as well? Okay, well, I would like to thank all of our candidates very much, and I thank you all for the opportunity to give me this job. I don't know how well I did, and if I ever do it again, I'll do better. But I certainly appreciate it, and I'd like to thank all the candidates.
All right. Just in closing, I'm going to take a very brief point of executive privilege because I can. And since we had two questions from the floor for the legislator, and 2 questions for the sheriff's candidates, I'm going to ask the supervisor candidates to indulge one more question since we're still right within that time limit I was hoping to stay in. And we'll pass.
You guys can stay seated.
So the question is, just in short, there have been some editorials and newspaper articles recently over the handling of some certificates of deposit the county holds from the sale of the hospital to Baptist Health Systems a number of years ago. And looking at the existing supervisor primarily here, can you explain why that money was moved to another financial institution after all these years instead of staying where it's been, and what your thoughts were on that?
Well, to fully understand the supervisor's position on that certificate of deposit, you have to go back to January of 2018, when that year our checking account, which every 2 years you have to bid for banks to be your county depository. And we asked all 4 banks that were in town to participate. 3 chose to do so. And we asked them to submit interest rates on what you would pay on our checking account. Now, our checking account varies from months of the year, January, February, March, when we collect most of our taxes. It's a high balance. And then it starts to dwindle throughout the year as we spend the money as we go throughout the calendar year. So we asked for interest rates, and 3 banks participated. Renaissance Bank was the highest. Bancorp South had the 2nd best rate, and B&A Bank had the 3rd best rate. So after a lot of discussion and conversation back and forth, the board decided then that we would give B&A Bank some of the funds if they would match the high rate by Renaissance. They agreed to do that, and what the county decided to do was to split those funds approximately 60% to Renaissance, 40% to B&A Bank, basically because Renaissance was a high bidder and we thought we needed to reward them with more of the funds. So we did that, and after all of that, there was a lot of discussion, and you've heard a lot of that discussion in the press about why we shouldn't do that kind of thing. But after that, we decided that it would no longer go split. We were going to make sure that the highest bidder, whoever that might be, would receive the funds. So you move forward to April of 2018, and our CD of $8.5 million was up for renewal. There were 3 bids. B&A Bank was the highest, and we gave the CD to them because they were the highest bidder. You move forward to April of this year, and we received bids again. B&A Bank was not the highest bidder, they were the second highest bidder. And true to our word, we gave it to the highest bidder, which was Bancorp South. Now, I know that decision was not greeted happily with a lot of our banking officials. But the thing that you have to understand is, if we continue to let one bank match the other bank's rates, why is there any incentive for those other banks to even bid at all? What you're doing, you're effectively taking the bid process away, and we might not gain as good of a rate if we did not do that. So that was our decision, to let the highest bidder receive the funds regardless, and to protect the integrity of the bid process. So that's what we did, and quite frankly, if I was a politician, and if I wanted to do the politically correct thing, I would have probably be persuaded to leave the money at B&A Bank. But why did y'all elect me? Did you elect me to make a decision that's best for B&A Bank or best for the citizens of Union County? And that's what we as a board of supervisors did. We made a decision that was best for our citizens of Union County.
Mr. Gann, if you care to comment?
Well, this is more his round, but I just commend him for what he just stood here and said. You have to understand that there's always going to be a trade-off. We're talking about the pie, how big the pie is, and where we're going to allocate this, and where we're going to allocate that. Making these tough decisions like that is how you get more of the pie. He's talking interest rates. The highest bidder should get the money. That means more money for the citizens of Union County, more money to fix the roads and bridges. Yes, you have to give up something. To get anything, you have to give up something. If you're going to fund education, you're going to have to give up something. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So I think the Board of Supervisors made the right decision and took the highest bidder, which made the most money for Union County and its citizens.
I want to just recognize 2 races real quick, Union County Supervisor District 3 and House District 14. Those races will effectively be decided in the Republican primary this year because there are no Democrat opponents in those races at all. And I think that is a huge watermark for our party, a huge watermark for the county, and for these candidates also. And I just want to make sure we recognize that tonight. I want to thank you guys again for coming out tonight. As I've heard it said a bunch of times, and I've said it myself, the ears will only hear what the rear can tolerate, and I think we've all sat here long enough. So, thanks again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening. We're dismissed.